They called him Old Joe the janitor with oil-stained hands and a faded cap that he never took off, not even in the blazing summer heat. At Lincoln High, he was invisible to most, a fixture in the background like the scuffed lockers and flickering hallway lights. But today, under the relentless glare of judgmental eyes and the choking haze of burnt rubber, Old Joe stood at the center of it all. And they mocked him. It started when the school's pride and joy, the gleaming, cherry-red Mustang meant to lead the homecoming parade, sputtered and died right in front of the entire student body. The car was a symbol, donated by an alumnus who made it big, and its failure felt like a slap in the face. No one knew what went wrong. The auto shop kids tried and failed. Mr. Carter, the science teacher with a YouTube degree in car repair, gave up after 15 minutes. As frustration mounted and the crowd grew restless, Old Joe shuffled over, wiping his hands on a rag that had seen better days. "Mind if I take a look?" he asked quietly. Laughter rippled through the group like a cruel wind. "What's the janitor gonna do?" "Mop up the engine," one of the football players sneered. Another chimed in, "Maybe he'll sweep the pistons clean." Even some teachers cracked smiles. Joe didn't react. He simply leaned in, listening, feeling, like a man greeting an old friend. His fingers traced the engine's edges with a tenderness no one expected. The kids kept jeering, the jokes grew louder, until a voice cut through the noise. "Let him try." It was Maria, the quiet girl from the back of the class, the one who stayed late to help clean up after assemblies, who knew the janitor by name. Her words silenced the crowd just enough for Joe to get to work. He tapped a few places, tightened something with a wrench pulled from his battered toolkit, and then paused, his hand resting on the hood like a benediction. "Try it now," he said. With a skeptical smirk, Mr. Carter turned the key. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, with a cough and a growl, the engine roared to life, loud, powerful, alive. The sound echoed off the brick walls like a defiant anthem. The crowd fell silent, mouths agape. Even the birds seemed to pause mid-flight. Joe straightened up slowly, his knees creaking louder than the now smooth hum of the Mustang. No one laughed now. The mocking faces had morphed into ones of awe and, for some, shame. The boy who had called out about sweeping pistons looked at his shoes. In that electric moment, a memory flashed through Maria's mind, how, weeks ago, Joe had fixed her busted bike chain after school while telling stories about engines as if they were living things with souls. No one had believed her when she said Old Joe used to be a mechanic, back when he had his own shop and a family business. Life had taken a cruel turn. His shop lost to a fire, his savings drained by hospital bills for his late wife, and now, he swept the hallways of a high school that barely noticed him. But engines he never stopped loving. Principal Andrews pushed through the crowd, his face a mix of embarrassment and gratitude. "Joe, why didn't you say you could do this?" Joe shrugged. Didn't think anyone would listen. The crowd, which had only minutes ago been ready to dismiss him as nothing more than a janitor, now saw him in a different light. The silence was thick with unspoken apologies and shifting perspectives. Maria caught Joe's eye and smiled. He nodded back, just a flicker of warmth breaking through his usually stoic face. But it didn't stop there. Word of Joe's quiet triumph spread through Lincoln High like wildfire. That afternoon, kids started stopping him in the hallways, not to mock, but to ask questions. Some brought their broken skateboards and rusty bikes. The auto shop teacher, red-faced but humble, asked if Joe would be willing to drop by his class sometime to show the students a thing or two. Joe agreed, but only if it was after school hours. He still had floors to mop and trash to take out. A week later, the school organized an after-hours club called Joe's Garage. Kids from all cliques, jocks, nerds, loners, gathered in the school's old shop room to learn from the janitor who once stood unseen in their midst. Under his patient guidance, they fixed things, engines, yes, but also their fractured relationships and bruised egos. They learned the value of grit, respect, and the quiet dignity in doing a job well, no matter how small. Maria became his unofficial assistant, translating his old-school wisdom into notes and videos that even the most distracted teen could understand. She posted clips online, and soon people from other towns reached out, wanting to learn from old Joe. The real turning point came when the same Mustang that had embarrassed the school crossed the finish line at the state parade, engine purring like a lion, with Joe in the passenger seat beside the proud driver, none other than the football player who had first mocked him. The boy had apologized, genuinely, and Joe had shrugged it off with his usual grace. We all break down sometimes. What matters is if we're willing to get fixed. That line stuck. It became the unofficial motto of Joe's Garage, printed on t-shirts and banners. And the transformation wasn't just in the kids. The teachers, the parents, even the community started seeing beyond titles and uniforms. They saw that kindness and wisdom often were the plainest clothes. They started recognizing the janitors, the cafeteria workers, the bus drivers, the people who kept the world running quietly in the background. By the end of the school year, the district gave Joe an award at graduation, calling him an educator in the truest sense. The applause that day was thunderous, more heartfelt than any valedictorian speech. Joe, standing on stage with his cap still on, eyes shining just a little, said simply, "I just fixed an engine. You all did the real work." But everyone knew the truth. It was his quiet strength and selfless act that had sparked a fire in their hearts. As the sun set on that warm June evening, the students and parents lingered outside, many shaking Joe's hand or clapping him on the back. Maria stood beside him, proud and teary-eyed. The Mustang, once dead and mocked, now gleamed in the golden light, its engine still warm, a symbol of second chances and unseen worth. And so, old Joe, the janitor they once laughed at, had done something extraordinary. He hadn't just fixed an engine. He'd restored faith, built bridges, and reminded everyone that sometimes the greatest power lies not in status or wealth, but in kindness, skill, and the courage to step forward when the world doubts you. And in the end, that roar of the engine wasn't just metal coming to life, it was the sound of hearts waking up.